Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Past broadcasts are podcasts. Pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Send us your questions and comments by email to dj@artistfirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'm Michael Lyons.
Oh, and I'm Margaret.
And we are back.
Yep.
We're back. We took a lot of vacation this year.
I think we needed it.
I think the audience needed it too.
Yes. We can't be the only ones.
We can't be the only ones. But we are back, and we are going to kick off the post-vacation period with a little stricture, a little discipline.
Oh? Oh.
No, we're not. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about, what we're going to characterize as the prison of the mind. But we want to lead off, and we're going to lead right off with we're going to impose some discipline upon our show format, and we're going to lead off with the quote.
Okay.
Go.
All right. Dogmas are collective conceptual prisons. And the strange thing is that people love their prison cells, because they give them a sense of security and a false sense of, I know. Nothing has inflicted more suffering on humanity than its dogmas. Eckhart Tolle.
Yes. And, and just to make sure everyone knows that, a dogma is a belief system or an underpinning of a belief system which cannot be challenged or controverted. It must be believed not just implicitly, but explicitly. You must explicitly profess the belief in the dogma. So war is peace, that kind of thing. If you were in 1984, there were dogmas that underpinned the tyranny of that society. But in any sort of group within which there are strict distinctions, you're in or you're out, you will find, if you kind of get inside and piece it together a little bit, you will find dogmas. You will find that there are things that you must believe, and if you don't, and they can be stated as lines on a paper, or sort of implied, but with sort of the, as they say, the iron fist within the velvet glove type of thing. If you go outside of them, if you profess a disbelief in the dogmas, you are now in the outer, you're in the outer darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So Tolle here is very rightly saying that nothing has inflicted more suffering on humanity than its dogmas.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's not just the suffering, by the way, of the people whom are persecuted. The people who are doing the persecuting are also suffering, whether they know it or not.
Right. Right.
Dogmas, and that's what our topic is tonight, in case you hadn't realized that. These aren't poodles. These are attack dogmas. These, I make these things up as I go along. But they really are. They're used as weapons. They're used as a cudgel, as a mace, to bludgeon people. And when a group think is in essence centered around a set of dogmas, that group can become an unthinking, a force that will literally use violence or use the exclusionary power of a group, one group to another, to enforce its dogmas. That that tendency of human beings alone is enough to explain almost all of the misery that you see in the world, from the small to the large. Because when people feel that the other is in the wrong, or that the other is somehow less than human, and often the way they discern that is whether they're following the dogmas, the rules, or not. Then any kind of atrocity is on the table.
Yes.
Once you've identified the other, and said that they've crossed these lines, they're no longer, worthy of respect. They're no longer equivalent to human beings. They're now objects or animals. You can treat them as you will. And dogma, wrapped in power, becomes a force for great evil. But again, as I said before, the suffering is not just those who are enforcing or prosecuting the evil, or enforcing the dogma. The suffering is also upon those who do that, because it violates some of the basic tenets of their beinghood and their humanity, whether they know it or not. The true sufferers, the true monsters, are on the side of the enforcing of the dogma and the damage it's doing to themselves. So it's all around bad.
Okay. Well, the phrase that people love their prison cells because it gives them a sense of security and a sense of I know. So understanding that need for security is basic in everybody. You want to feel like you're not going to be hurt or attacked or taken advantage of. And most people use the concept of, well, if I know enough about it, then I won't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And that is correct to a degree. But if you continue to constantly try to evaluate things because you're feeling insecure, that needs to be acknowledged. It's really the fear that is driving you to adhere to these rules that you feel the situation must fit into in order to feel secure.
Yeah, I would say, to kind of leap off on what you just said, often dogmas are used in place of evaluation, or rather of truly seeking information and using that to inform oneself. That's sort of the anti-dogma. The dogma, once it takes root, it's used in face of all other facts or of any other information. It's like, no, this is how we do it.
Well, I know the situation where, people were in charge of running some sort of group event. All right. And these people had run the group event a number of years, and they wrote down everything that they figured out. It's usually this many people, and you need this amount of food for this many people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they were basically going off the same menu that they had always done. And so when the next group of people were taking over, they pretty much went over to them and said, okay, this is how we do it. And the other people looked at them and just said, okay. And the first group was confused over, well, why aren't they listening to us? This is kind of how the dogma begins to be set forth. Mm-hmm. This expectation of, well, we figured it all out.
Exactly.
And nothing else can change because it's always going to be this way. Instead of just saying, well, no, and all the time we've been running it, this is kind of how we did it, but this is only good if you guys are going to have the same menu or have the same events, whatever it may be. The communications was a breakdown. There was no, well, you might have other ideas that we never thought of.
Right, and I would, if you go inside that a little bit, because in essence what you said is the we've already figured it all out, and to disregard that wounds the ego. So that's kind of one of the drivers of dogma.
Well, that was the interesting part. The first group, their egos were immediately bruised over, well, we've done all this work and research before you, how come you're not appreciating it?
Right.
And there was just no acknowledgement that you're dealing with people to people.
Well, and I think there's no acknowledgement of change. Dogma doesn't suffer a change. Dogma, in essence, sets itself as a immutable set of rules, or in this case, sort of a menu, a plan. This is the plan. This is how it works. It's very much a paint by numbers. You see this in art a lot, and sometimes in fashion, in art and in fashion. Things become trend, and then you suddenly, somebody, you have this period of time when everybody is doing this type of art or this type of
you mean there's a movement, a certain type of movement in
right.
a certain genre.
Right, and then somebody comes along and says, I'm going to do it this way. And the first reaction is, oh, that's just terrible. No one's going to pay any attention to that. But you stick to your guns. Then you continue your art. And then some people say, well, this is kind of cool. I like this. And the established dogma rises up in fear, but in rage, and condemns this. It's subversive. It's going to harm the youth. It's going to create all these kinds of disruptions in society. We have to crush this. So many initial geniuses in art are not met with, oh, wow, we never thought of that before. What a beautiful thing. We must explore this. We must be open to, no, it's all closed down. It's all figured out. It's all been figured out already. This is how you do pictures. And somebody comes up and starts doing, Andy Warhol, and they get vilified because you're not doing it the right way. And if people like you, that's bad. And we have to stop that right now. We have to nip this in the bud because this kind of stuff can destabilize all the rules, all the dogmas. So dogma is a method of stifling innovation. And it is, as you just said, it's so driven by fear and by ego, by pride. We've already figured this all out. We've handed down to you the book of rules. Here they are. Covers every situation. Nothing will ever change. You see this in Oriental societies. Throughout humanity, you can find a million examples. But it comes down to the human desire to have, to be the be-all and the end-all, to have figured it all out, to see whatever comes after you as less than you, as one should conform to our wisdom and acknowledge, that we are the pinnacle of humanity, and that all you can do is copy us.
Well, yeah, pretty much. It sets up a hierarchy that says that this particular group is always going to be on top because
the best. They
are the foremost in this particular technique. And et cetera, and this is the standard of everything.
The standard, exactly.
And Picasso was one who basically said, I'm breaking all the rules, and let's see where we go.
And he was formally trained.
His early stuff is very much what is considered
Classical.
Mm-hmm. But he had decided, I am going to break these rules and see how this goes. Because he just didn't feel like we should all conform in this particular way. So, and there are a number of artists who had gone down that route.
I think you don't get any innovation in art unless you have that rebellion.
Well, the creative spirit in a human being understands that if you're basically making this structure that I cannot be allowed to surpass, to climb, then I'm going off and doing something else. I'm not, I understand what you're saying. I'm going over here.
But you know, dogmas won't allow that. In almost every case, the dogma has a dogmatic regimes have a visceral reaction to even just to not just to active rebellion, which you could see, okay, active rebellion you want to do something about maybe, but just even to, well, you know, I'm okay, you're okay, just I'm going to do my own thing. Oh no, and we can't allow that, because then you'll have the youth coming up and following these rebels, you know, and things will get bad. So we have to snip that as soon as we can, or make it so undesirable and so rejected that it will wither and die.
You mean, you know, they have to get canceled?
Canceled. There's a great word. Now we're in 2020, 22, 21, 2022. Now we're in the cancel regime. But this is just the latest.
No, it's been a habit for them that those that are in power want to stay there. So there's a lot of rules that get made up in order for them to be at that top, the pinnacle. You're the best. You're the best,
and the rules. This is a very good point, Ma. The rules always favor the powerful, because the rules are exactly that. The rules codify who we think we are. In other words, the rules are we're great, and everyone else is not great. And if you want to be great, you got to be like us. And if you're outside of our little box, you know, this, and now we can probably bring it in, but the prison cell that Tolle talks about, or the prison of this groupthink, the prison of the group mind. If you're outside of it, you know, first of all, we reject you, and if you continue to exist despite rejection, we'll attack you, and you know, sometimes that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just that mediocrity has a place in these prison cells.
Oh yeah.
Because they can say, "Well, I'm better than you, but I'm worse off than this person." It's like, take this. I'm going to reach my level, and this is where I am, and they feel safe. It's kind of like what you see in the teaching profession, where.
Ooh.
Well, people have tenure, but it doesn't mean that they're excellent teachers.
And just to be fair, that isn't every teacher, but you see it. You see this sort of thing in many institutionalized professions. Teaching is one of them. It's highly institutionalized.
Right. It gets the ones that are on top and in charge and making up the rules and getting the money are going to try to make sure that they continue to be there.
Yes.
And so what did they do? They codified it so that, well, if you've been in there long enough, and therefore you can get the money too.
Right. Well, you're of the body. But all of these things, you know, kind of, and you can pick examples, you know, there's all kinds of institutionalized thinking, these dogmatic thinking.
Yes.
And why, and we've kind of hinted around it, but why they exist is that they feed the ego, and they give the ego. What you see in dogma is the ego expression of its safety net. Dogma gives the ego what it really loves. It loves rules. It loves distinctions. It loves me and the other, who is us and who is them. It really, really loves, I'm right and you're wrong. It really, really wants that kind of fuel. So the ego, which is the enforcer of the prison, if you will, and it also is in essence a builder of the prison, is there because this feeds it. This is ego fuel. Dogma, which says what we do is right, and this is how we do it. Write them all down, and everybody else who doesn't do exactly what we do is wrong. They're the other. We can look at them and say they're not us. They're far less than us, and then we can start very, very tiny and looking like it's innocent, but it can grow to this, horrific tyranny. It can grow to hideous atrocity where the other is so considered to be outside of what is right and good that they become less than human. Not just wrong, the other is wrong. No, the other is not human. It's an object that can be destroyed, right, without guilt. To borrow a horrible. We just heard about this the other day, watching a different program. To borrow a horrible example, in the Nuremberg trials, which was the Nazi trials after World War II, in one of the testimonies, the person who was testifying was somebody who ran the ovens. And what that person said, I couldn't be concerned. He was asked basically, how could you do this? How could you murder all these people so casually? He said, well, I couldn't be concerned about that. My only concern was the fact that I couldn't keep the ovens running efficiently, and that no matter what I did, there were bodies piling up everywhere. This had put the humanity of those who were other, in that case, as not even a concern. The concern was the efficiency of the operation. Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at that person, you say that person is causing tremendous suffering, and the group caused tremendous suffering. But you look at that person and say, this person is in themselves suffering, so removed from their connection to being that they can't see the other as a being, and that they're wounding themselves so horribly as well at the same time.
Well, wouldn't you call that a psychopath?
but it is. But it is a psychopathy of a group mind, of agreeing that to a dogma that said, this is the people who count. This is the people who are real. Everything outside of it is objects that just needed to be disposed of efficiently. And it denies the humanity on both sides.
Okay, so what you're saying is his lack of humanity is
a horrific wound.
Well, he's lost his humanity.
Exactly.
Is what has happened.
Exactly. And that the root of that was a particular set of beliefs, a dogma that put one group in the group of those who counted, and everyone else in a different group.
Right. So in his mind.
Yes.
Only specified or specific human beings were worth considering. Everything else needed to be managed efficiently.
Right. And
I mean, honestly, how many people do you know think that way?
You would say, first of all, the first answer is hopefully nobody. But the true answer is that you can find this writ, small and large, in throughout human societies. You often talk about the Oriental mindset, where China is an interesting example because China basically called the land of China, they called it the world. And within the land of China were the people. And then everyone else outside was considered a ghost, a non-human, something which was almost, so something almost demonic, almost certainly not human. And it was to be resisted, conquered if necessary. The dogma of China was that the land, the world, was here, was within our borders, and everything outside was some sort of a wasteland peopled by ghosts, by the unburied dead. And it serves to some extent, but it makes the ability to see being in the other completely blind, completely lost. And then even within, the society was extremely dogmatic, even within its stratifications and all the other things.
Right. Well, exceedingly. There is a certain way of living, or a mindset. See, this is the mindset because in modern China, they supposedly had gotten rid of every religion, and they're saying they're getting rid of every dogma, but they put their own in with the Red Book and
Mao is a god, in essence.
Yes. Well, one of our friends was explaining to us that they would hold up the Red Book and recite what was in there, almost crying, because this is almost like I'm praying to Mao.
Mm-hmm. And it was dogma. You had to learn it by heart.
Right.
You had to learn it by heart. You had to be able to quote the Red Book. Mm-hmm. You had to carry it around with you. And you would say, well, China got rid of all religion. No, they just made a new one.
They did. They said, now it's a party, but no, they just replaced it with another regime. And it's very difficult because the basis of the foundation is considered, it's still there. They haven't wiped it out, and that has to do with the mandate of heaven, which is a whole other topic. But in that particular society, when you study it, the people are supposed to be the most important. They're supposed to be.
Supposed to be.
Yes. And the United States is about the only country where that concept was actually acted upon. That's why we were considered the great experiment, because no other country did it this way.
And it's arguable whether the experiment's still ongoing or not.
Well, the forces that are, the tendency of man, they want to be in control. They want power. They're not going to give up easily. So we're just blessing this because things unfold in a whole different way in this country.
Yes. Well, you know what? Let's, on that moment, I want to go into next half hour, I want to get into a little more deeply into the prison of the mind. I think let's take a little break. Let's go back to the prison of the commercial break. And on the other side, we'll come back and we'll talk more about dogma.
Batman Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and Murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some Moonstones and Murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Brag Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Listening to the Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. Tonight's weather includes increasing darkness near the evening hours. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Well, you know, it's always bright here, though.
I love it.
With increasing chance of darkness till nightfall.
Yeah.
Yes. We're on a different subject entirely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, tonight we are talking about dogma, and the weather is sort of a dogma for some people. They follow it religiously, but
actually, you think about that. Anything that you're following religiously is something of a dogma, because as the definition that Tully was giving, they're collective conceptual prisons.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about prisons, because I think we've mentioned the prison of the mind a few times, and that's a term which I think is evocative. It conjures up something, but if you truly kind of look at this as dogmas as self-constructed prisons, we often talk on the Soul of the Everyman about boxes, or about the fact that people like to categorize, and that the ego loves this sort of thing. But when you talk about the prison of the mind, the other concept which Totally often talks about is the fact that the ego mind resonance, if you will, the constant voice in your head that's talking all the time, and sometimes people have 2 and 3 voices, and this isn't some sort of psychotic break, or some sort of true mental illness, or at least it may be a degree of it, but these voices in your head are often identified by the ego as you, and people will say, well, I was talking to myself about this, and it's quite a casual phrase, I was thinking about this and talking about it and discussing it within my mind. And in fact, this is what's happening in many people's inner world. There are voices. There are voices which in essence are scolding, haranguing voices. There are voices which are critical voices, right?
Yeah. No. If you think of the tone of the voice that you're hearing, you realize that those are actually the bars, the material of the bars that you set. So when you're thinking of something, it's encased in criticism, or it's encased in a viewpoint of you'll never get out of this, or something's out to get me. That's when we get fear, but afraid that something is going to hurt you in some way or denigrate you in some way. Right. That the tone being the substance of the bars.
Yes. And
when you realize that exists, because for a person, you've got to acknowledge that this is actually what's going on in my head. That's a big realization, because most of the time it's whispers or thoughts that are flitting in and out, and you're really not acknowledging that this is a thought that just entered my head. You're just like, oh yes, it's this, oh yes, it's that. But to be aware of the fact that this is presenting itself in front of me, and I have the ability to choose my reaction to it, that's the beginning of separating your consciousness from your ego.
The voices, Margaret, the ones prior to what you're saying, which is correct, are often the voices that are in your head are spouting dogmas.
Yes.
When you open your eyes, or you turn, let's say you're walking down the street and you turn a corner and you see someone in front of you, the voices in your head immediately start to tell you what this person is, who they are, what you should expect. Are they going to hurt me? Do I feel afraid? All these things come into your head based on the dogmatic voices of the ego.
Right.
You can't, if you're in the being moment, there's another presence in front of you. But in the dogma, that presence has to be judged. Is this a friend or a foe? Is this someone I should be afraid of, or somebody I want to avoid? When you look at, let's say, Mother Teresa, okay, the dogmatic view of the people that she was associating with, or Christ for that matter, but just, one example at a time. The dogmatic view of the people she was associating with is not only are they not human, but to touch them makes you in some way contaminated. These were the untouchables. In their society, dogma said that they are barely, they're barely acknowledged. They are literally the refuse in the street. They don't deserve any sort of consideration in society.
Right. There are many stories with Mother Teresa of her picking up a person that's just lying in the street and putting him in a bed, and he was dying. And he had just turned to her and said, "Thank you for letting me die as a human being."
As a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So breaking through those dogmas required her to silence the voices in her head, perhaps, but also to deal with the inability for the society around her to in any way sanction what she was doing.
She was doing it because in her heart of hearts she knew that this was the right thing to do. This is a human spirit, and it's being treated like a piece of garbage.
Right.
And this is not right. So she did what she could.
Right. And the prison of the mind is like that.
Yes.
When the prison of the mind, when you see the other being, if you eschew all these dogmas, you see a being, and you see a being which in essence could be you. There, but for the grace of God, go I.
Right.
And the Christ-centered way of looking at that is you do what you do for the least of these, you do for me.
Yes.
But the dogmatic way of looking, and you could say Talmudic way, is that this person is a non-believer. This person doesn't wash. This person doesn't follow any of the rules. This person is unclean. And it's not just Talmudic. You can find it in every society.
Well, any religion also has that, as well as any, this is the way we're supposed to behave. And if you're not part of the group.
But all those voices, right?
Right.
Are the voices of your teachers, the voices of your book, the voices of your tribe, the voices that say, this is how we act. This is how we dress. This is not how they act. This is how they act. This is how they dress.
It's very tribal.
But those are all within the ego voices. So you open your eyes and you see the man who's lying in the street, the Good Samaritan story, which everyone knows. You see the man lying in the street, and you are the religious leader, and you see him, and you cross the street. You're the person who is a devout believer, and you say you just pass by. This person, I don't want to get involved. You are the stranger in a strange land, perhaps used to being shunned, and you see this man lying in the street, and in your heart, what rises up is that could be me.
Yes.
You're no longer listening to the egoic voices. You're not listening to the rules anymore, because the rules make that the other. But the being says that is me. That is another portion of an emanation of spirit. And right now, the being that portion of spirit is suffering, and I can do something to help. The whole purpose of the dogma is to keep the ego fed. And when you eschew dogma, you starve the ego. When you eschew dogma, you go into the being state and you see that you and the other are the same. You're connected at the heart level, you're connected at the spirit level. The voices become just that, just a bunch of voices in your head that you can ignore. But if you identify with them, if they are you, if they subsume your being and cloud it up with all their talk, you see the other as less than, and you can do great harm.
Well, there's no heart in what you do. I think one of the key understandings is that to be able to live where you are in a very direct heart-to-heart contact with others is the only way the humanity will be able to come through. People want to, they go on these things of, I want to help someone, and what's the first thing they do? They sit down and they want to figure out a way to help someone. Whereas when you are in the situation, your heart tells you, this is what's got to happen. And if your ego gets in the way, oh, well, people will look at me funny. Right. Or I can't say that because they won't like me. They'll infer that I must be a certain way.
Right.
So when a person is actually acting out of the goodness of their heart, it is very apparent, especially when you're in that moment, you're watching another person do this. It becomes contagious because someone else wants to do that as well. Their heart is suddenly alive, going, oh, let me see if I can do that, help someone else. And it's a heart-to-heart more than anything else. No one's going to listen to you unless they know that you care. It's as simple as that. People are suspect over anything that they're hearing or reading because someone is just putting down their particular dogma. It's an intellectual concept. Always suspicious. But
oh, I like that. Always suspicious. It's true.
But it's true. Unless the love and the care is there in the other person who is giving, and they're giving freely, then whatever that person is saying, if there's no heart connect, it's just noise. They could say almost anything, the entire alphabet, and it just doesn't matter. But if the connection is made and the care is there and the heart perceives that there's a gift here for me, and that heart opens, then even if the words are not eloquent, the deed, the act, the love comes through and makes a difference. And that's what I find most important in any interaction. Because when there's some concept that someone wants to proselytize, let me talk about this, oh, I know a lot about that, let me tell you what I know, I. All it's doing is setting a stage for that I ego. It has nothing to do with truly caring about what need be done. I remember one incident where a gentleman had come in and he was asking if there's anything that he could do, a little task, a handyman kind of thing at one of the stores. And he just wanted to be able to get a little money to get something to eat. Okay. And I remember I had nothing that really needed to be done, but I'm like, oh, sure. I'm looking, and I just wanted to give the man like $5. And the lady I was with went into this qualification of how it's got to be and da-da-da-da-da. It's like, well, we could do this. I'm looking at her like, And a friend of mine who was there, who does handyman work, actually, just looked at the guy, went into his pocket and gave him the money. He said, this is going to take forever. Here. Because the ego that was involved, especially when it came to her money, there was all these rules and regulations that she needed to have in order to do this right. And I'm standing there going, I don't have a cent in my pocket right now. So, and it was followed through by my other friend. He understood exactly what I had wanted to do and followed through on it. I was grateful. Okay.
Well, that's the case where this it's, and I was thinking this earlier, but it kind of follows with this. It's the difference between compassion and sympathy.
Mm.
But in that case, what you saw in this man was, I'll extrapolate that what he was basically saying was, I need this money, but I don't want to beg for it.
Right.
And it used to be that if you wanted somebody to give you something of value, you gave value in exchange. This was his
right.
his code, if you will.
Well,
but I mean, that doesn't matter. You said, look, I don't have anything to do, but I see the other in you. I see that you just need a little assistance. I'm willing to give it to you. And then it doesn't. It's when you talk about unconditional love, there's also just unconditional love. I don't care if you're going to turn around and you say, oh, I got that one over you, I'm going to go buy drugs or whatever. My heart said, give it to you. I'm going to do it. I don't care I don't control you through a gift.
Right.
I give a gift if I wish to.
Well, it's just that this particular instance, there wasn't really anything that needed to get done. And that was what the other lady really wanted was, we have to try it, we could do. And it's this ritual. It became a ritual, it became a dogma. It's like, right.
Well, I don't have anything to do, so we can't do this. And this is a good example of dogma getting in the way.
Right.
Perhaps, if with an appropriate level of reflection, she could have said, well, let's just give them the money. But in the way was her voices in her head, right. which then came out of her mouth. But right. They started in her head, and I won't pick on any particular. They start in our head, where you see the other, and at the heart level you say, this could be me. I could be the one who needs money, and I could be the one who just wants to give some way of offering any service I can. So I know maybe you don't need me, but I need this, and can you help me? And I'm willing to do something for you. So it becomes an exchange, something that just isn't me saying, gimme. But rather than just feel the connection and say, out of the goodness of my heart, I see you, I see you, I witness you, I could be you here. And the other one says, no, I have to do something. Look, pay it forward. Give it to the next guy. Get yourself on your feet. Whatever. Give them something to go forward with. Because people, that's a real feeling.
It's a real feeling.
But rather, instead, the voices all rose up and said, well, no, it has to be this, it has to be this. And we can't give unless we've got, 17 rules and it's a 401c and blah, blah, blah. So you have all of this stuff.
Right.
The ego says, oh, if we followed all the rules, we could do this. But we can't do this right now. But next week on Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, it'll be perfect.
Right. And that's what was making me, I was like, really?
Right.
Just can't do, we have to. And then I had another friend we had another incident where a gentleman had come in and he was just looking.
This is in the store, by the way, in case you guys were wondering where we are. That this happens when we had our store.
Right. He was just looking for a job.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And just a light conversation. He was just saying, yeah, I'd like to make some money to eat. And my other friend, who was on the other end of the spectrum, immediately we looked at each other. And she ran in the back and took out her peanut butter sandwich and said, here, have some food.
Right.
And he's like, no, you don't understand.
I understand. I don't want your peanut butter sandwich. I'd like a job.
But it was it's like both ends of the spectrum. I was like, here, have a peanut butter sandwich.
But in my opinion, the one like a, you'll see this in children. If one child is hungry, the other child just says, "Here, have whatever I have, because I see you in me. Yeah. I see your. Sharing. Oh man, I wouldn't want to be hungry. Well, you give, and you say, and now it's like the old story, the loaves and the fishes, and people look at that as a miracle, and it is. But you can also look at it in the sense that, in seeing yourself in the other and seeing the fact that the other is hungry, in breaking the bread and sharing it, it becomes greater. Everyone is fed. I didn't need the full peanut butter sandwich. and in essence, the humanity of all is respected, and everyone is elevated by that. And you go away from suffering by silencing the voice of the ego.
Mm-hmm.
You in essence become the being. You get outside of that. You starve the ego and you feed yourself.
And the truth is that if you do not make space for the differences, okay, and believe that there's something greater than what your pronouncements are on the situation, where your dogmas are all in all, you've set a space where you cannot forgive. There's no room for forgiveness in that kind of state.
If you don't expand.
Where you're just constrained. Unforgiveness is a prison.
And a dogma.
Yes, it is. So learning to forgive is the key to opening any mind prison that you might have.
And you have the key to that prison always.
You always do.
But one key we have to take away right now is that we've reached the part of the show where we have to put ourselves back in the box.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm Michael Lyons.
All righty. And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.